Ciao, jewelry makers. I have a second project with our lovely glass beads in the Curated Bead Box Treasure Chest for December 2023. I am so excited to do this. So I am also going to link a video below because this is the first time that I ever remember Curated Bead Box including necklace size memory wire in the box. And I had coincidentally done a video a few weeks back using necklace memory wire, and it was a lovely choker design. I know it's difficult to see here. I'll put up some pictures and a link to the video below, but it's a choker and I added chains to the end. So the interesting thing is I ordered this from Amazon, and it is the heavy duty extra large necklace memory wire, and I had a really hard time turning a loop on the ends, which, necessity is the mother of invention. I wanted to figure out a way to finish off the ends on my choker necklace without turning a loop. So the design was born out of that. But what we received in the Curated bead box this month is the necklace size memory wire. I believe the box said we got 10 rounds of it. So that's great. That's a nice long necklace. So this one is not the heavy duty. It's this will be no problem to turn a loop. It's the same diameter and strength as we have for the bracelet size memory wire, but it's the larger ring, so it can make a necklace. So I'm going to start by cutting one complete round. I know I have a lot of beads under my desk, but I'll show you where I'm going with that. So I am going to take some older cutters. These are my older cutters. Normally on memory wire, you want to use memory wire cutters because it's stainless steel cable, but these are heavy duty and they're junky. I use them for thicker wires and things. And as you can tell, I had no problem cutting this at all. Where on this heavy duty memory wire, I don't even know if the camera will pick up the difference in thickness, but it is quite a lot heavy duty. So this should be easier on the hands and maybe even more fun to design with. So let me put these extra ones out of the way. And now I have a complete round of memory wire. And so what my plan is to do another choker style necklace, but I want to embellish the front. So it's going to go, this will be the front, the solid part, and I'm going to string a bead pattern all the way around, but come to about the 2/3 section. And I'm going to create a dimensional bow right here with beads and then finish stringing my pattern. And that way, when this is on, the bow will not be right in the middle, centered on the collarbone. It will be off to the side, almost the way you would sort of tie a bow around your neck. So that's the plan for this. And what I have chosen, I love this bead mix. So in this bead mix, I had all of these little spacers with the silver, the little silver shiny coating around the edge of the glass. And I am going to take one of the silver spacer beads for my center. And these are the beads that I had left over from my first project, which was home decor. I did some lovely beaded napkin rings and wine glass charm pieces. And so I have just sort of pulled out the beads that were left over from my napkin rings. And then in my other bead mix, in this bead mix, the more gold and the warmer, it's beautiful, the warm tones and the cool tones. I had a few of these kind of taupe colored glass pearls. So I'm going to create a pattern. I've just like put them all in a pile. I'm going to create a pattern out of this bead mix with this silver in between. And then my bow is going to be almost exactly the same technique that I did on the napkin rings. So this will be the center. It's going to have 8 of these little 6mm crackle beads on either side. And then I'm just going to do these 2 little pearls for the ends. And I have chosen this 24 gauge copper wire. to create my dimensional bow. So I'm going to take a little length of this out, and I know it seems odd that I'm using copper, but I really liked the way the copper looked with the beads that I'm using. I just really liked it. I thought it would be really pretty. So that is my plan. So first thing I'm going to do is just take my pliers and turn a small, oops, I pinched the other end, turn it this way, turn a small loop on the end. And you know, I have the snub nose pliers that are made for memory wire, but this is a very thin memory wire. And as you can see, I'm able to turn my loop with no problem whatsoever. So I don't even have to get out those more heavy duty pliers. And like this is, it's really nice memory wire because of not being so difficult to maneuver. You can see that I'm able to sort of reposition my little loops. I like to do a double on the end. I just think it looks pretty. And so now I can start stringing a bead pattern. So I just need to work out my pattern that I'm going to use, and I think I'll start with one of these little crackle glass beads, and then maybe one of these, and one of these pearls. And I'm just going to continue like that, creating a pattern until I get over to the 2/3 mark, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. I realized when I was working on my pattern that I was not going to have the length that I needed. So I did go back into the bead mixes that we had and take out some more pearls. I really love the neutral colors, and I love the mix of the silver and the gold, and even these. They're a little bit peachy, these pearls. I really like those mixed in too, since I'm going to make my bow embellishment out of copper wire. So I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. It is actually a random pattern, and I just went and added in a few more things than what I started with, just because that happens sometimes in design when you realize you're going to need more length or that you have to make adjustments to make things look right. So what I have done so far is gone about 2/3 of the way around my one memory wire coil. And that is because this would be the front of the neck. And I want my bow embellishment to be asymmetrical, to be off to one side. So I'm going to pause my pattern stringing right here and make my bow now to go on. And if you'll notice, I ended my stringing here where the bow is going to get strung on with some smaller beads, just because I want the bow to lay nicely on top of the front of the necklace and not be pushed out with these larger beads. So that's hopefully that's going to lay nice, because I thought to do that. So I'm just going to set that down, and I have saved out these beads over here to continue the last approximately third of the necklace. So that's what I have left of the things that I was using in my pattern. Plus we had plenty of these gold beads. So for the bow, I'm taking about 10 inches or so. You could use a bit more. And I am using 24 gauge wire, because this wire will need to pass through the holes of the beads one or two times. So the first thing that I'm going to do is string on this silver bead, and that's going to be the center of the bow. And then I sort of laid out a bit of a pattern here. I'm going to use 8 of these crackle glass beads, the 6 millimeter. I'm calling them champagne. I'm not exactly sure. I have my list here. I don't know exactly what the actual name was, but they look champagne to me. So this is, if you haven't seen my napkin ring home decor video that I did with Curated Beadbox this month, I will link it below. It's the same exact procedure, the same exact technique that I used with larger beads to make those bows. So I'm talking and counting 5. I want to go up to 8 of these 6mm beads, and I'm going to create the first loop of my bow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need one more. And I don't know why I chose 8. If you're wondering, it's just where I landed. And so I'm going to come about halfway. If it's a 10-inch piece of wire, I'm going to leave myself 5 or 6 inches over here. And then I'm going to take this off. I think it's going to be in my way. Take that off. And I'm going to leave myself a nice little tail and 5 or 6 inches on this side of the wire. And I'm just going to form a nice sort of bow loop. I don't want to get this into a point or kink my wire. So it's a little bit to hold on to, but it's not so bad. So that's pretty much what I'm doing, is just creating a little bow loop, and you'll have the chance to straighten everything out and position it a little bit better. And I just want to make sure those 2 beads meet as best that they can. And I'm just going to give this a twist just to secure everything. And I want to bring this wire, I want to bring this wire down. So turn it, that's easier. And then I'm going to take this silver spacer bead and put it right through. And I think I'm going to go through both because I want my twist to be hidden inside the bead. And that's why I chose such a fine gauge wire. Let me string this on and I'll turn it so that you can see that I still have space. So that's what it looks like. And if you can see in the top, I still have space in the hole because I need to pass these wires back through for the second loop of my bow. So I'm going to direction this one down. That's going to be one of my tails, and this one up, and do the same thing. I'm going to string on another 8 of these little 6mm crackle glass beads and create my second loop. Just literally repeat on this side what I did on the other side. Okay, so once you have the 8 on this side, repeat the same thing. Just get a hold of it, form a pretty little bow loop. Get my finger in there. The nice thing about such a fine gauge wire is it doesn't really fight with you that much. So just like on the napkin rings, once I have that loop formed, and I can actually get rid of a little bit of this. It's a little bit too much. And I'm just going to back it out and feed this wire through that silver bead. It's a little bit tricky because now I have 2 wires in there and this bead is hollow. So to get my wire to find the other side of the hole, just take a moment, but you'll get it. It definitely passes through there. There it is. And here's where you might want to use your pliers to help you. Just pull it nice and tight. I'm going to position it down. Pull it a little bit more, and you do have to be careful with this really fine gauge wire because you can break this wire fairly easily. And I'm just going to take a moment here to make sure that I'm happy with my bow loops, because this is going to be right on the front of the necklace. And I'm going to wrap this tail around and do the same thing on this side, just to make sure that my loops are secure. And now we're going to make our little tails here. I'm going to cut them to be the same length. And so I saved out a few beads for the tails. I'm going to do 3 of these 6mm crackle beads. So I saved out the last 6 of my crackle beads because I pretty much used that whole strand for this. And then I'm using one of the little pearls from this bead mix that we got because it coordinates really well. It just makes my elements appear in the, I realize there's a lot of things on my mat, but if you could see, it just makes my elements that I've done in my body of my necklace appear as well on my front bow embellishment. So I really like that. And then just to finish it off, I'm going to put one of those little gold pearls. And now I'm just going to make a really as neat and tidy of a little spiral as I can to cap it off, to keep the tail of my bow in place, keep those beads in place. And here you can sort of wind this spiral up tightly, and that will help hold everything. That just tightened it up really nicely. Let's get my finger in there and make sure I'm happy with that loop. Pull this up a little bit. Lovely. And I'm just going to repeat the same thing on this side. I don't know if it's coming across in the camera, in the audio of the video, but it's really windy outside and I can hear all of my wind chimes going off on the patio. Okay, I'm just going to do the exact same thing on this side. Clean up my mess a little bit. Just a nice tidy little spiral. I want this to be dimensional and kind of come forward a little bit on the necklace. So I'm just taking a moment to fix my little bow. And now I am going to string this right onto my memory wire. I am so sorry for the interruption in the project. I realized during editing that I was having technical problems with my microphone. So what I was explaining when the volume went out on the project is that when you are stringing the bow embellishment onto the necklace, you have to be patient and be careful not to damage the bow, remembering that we strung this on a really fine gauge wire and you can break this. Ask me how I know. I have broken this fine gauge wire making these bows in the past. So the thing I was explaining, which you'll see me showing you in the video, is that you have to find a little path for the bow to slide onto the memory wire. And so you have some wires going through, but as you can see, it does fit. Just be patient. It does take a little bit of sort of maneuvering because this is a hollow bead and we have several wires feeding through it. But as you can see, it does fit. Everything fits. And we get a really pretty finished look where this 3-dimensional bow is attached right to the front of the necklace. Also, you can see that where I am placing the bow on the memory wire it's sitting really nicely because I finished my stringing pattern at the 2/3 mark with really small beads. And then I'm stringing that bow onto the wire, and then I'll do really small beads on the other side. So the bow rests really nicely and sits just right on the front of the necklace and has its beautiful dimensional look without being pushed forward because of having beads that are too large behind it. And then I simply finished my random pattern, stringing it to the end of the memory wire, just leaving myself enough space to make two rounds of turns with the pliers. I just realized that I was having technical difficulties with my microphone for the last couple of minutes of the choker necklace project. So I have come back to tell you didn't miss anything in the sound. You just saw me turn the loop to finish off this beautiful choker necklace, and it is done. And I still have a lot of beads left over from the curated bead box. So I may try even another project with this really nice memory wire. I really loved getting that in the box this month. So I will put some pictures of this on my little mannequin, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope everyone is safe and warm this winter, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao, jewelry makers.